President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping 30% tariff on goods from the European Union and Mexico, starting August 1, 2025. This marks a dramatic shift in U.S. trade policy, aiming to pressure these countries into new trade deals. The administration says the move is about protecting American jobs and factories, arguing that past trade has been unfair. Tariffs, essentially taxes on imports, will now apply to most products from the EU and Mexico: cars, food, clothes, and more. The goal: make foreign goods pricier, encouraging Americans to buy domestic products. Businesses across the U.S. are scrambling to understand how this will impact their costs and supply chains. The announcement follows failed trade talks, signaling a more confrontational approach from the White House. Many global leaders and companies are caught off guard, worried about the ripple effects. The administration warns it's ready to escalate if demands aren't met, raising the stakes for everyone involved. This is a pivotal moment for global trade, one that could reshape how countries interact economically. For decades, disputes were settled through negotiation. Now, the U.S. is using tariffs as leverage. The world is watching. Will the EU and Mexico negotiate, or will this spark a broader trade conflict? The outcome could affect economies worldwide, from factory workers to everyday shoppers. American consumers may soon see higher prices on everyday goods. The administration insists this is necessary for long-term economic strength. But the risks of a global trade war have never felt more real. The European Union and Mexico have condemned the new tariffs, calling them unfair and harmful to the global economy. Leaders like Ursula von der Leyen and Claudia Sheinbaum vow to defend their countries, warning of possible retaliation. European nations, especially Germany and France, are urging a united EU response to avoid a damaging trade war. Both the EU and Mexico are considering their own tariffs on American goods if the U.S. doesn't back down. President Trump has responded with threats of even higher tariffs if they retaliate, escalating tensions. The threat of a tit-for-tat trade conflict is growing, making compromise harder to reach. Businesses and governments worldwide are bracing for economic fallout. The situation highlights how interconnected global trade has become. One country's decision can impact millions elsewhere. European leaders are meeting urgently, hoping to resolve the crisis before the August deadline. The stakes are high. A trade war could mean higher prices and job losses on both sides of the Atlantic. The world is watching closely, hoping for a diplomatic solution. The EU and Mexico see the U.S. move as a violation of international trade rules. Long-standing alliances are under strain, with trust between partners eroding. The next few weeks will determine whether relationships can be repaired or if divisions will deepen. The global economy hangs in the balance. Everyone is waiting to see if cooler heads will prevail. The Trump administration says the tariffs are needed to fix America's trade deficit, when the U.S. buys more from other countries than it sells. Talks with the EU stalled, so tariffs are now being used as leverage for a fairer deal. With Mexico, the situation is even more complex. The administration links tariffs to issues like drug trafficking and migration. President Trump argues Mexico must do more to stop illegal drugs and border crossings. By tying trade to security, negotiations become even tougher for Mexico. This is all part of the America First policy, protecting U.S. industries by making foreign goods more expensive. The hope is to boost American manufacturing and create jobs. Critics warn this could disrupt supply chains and raise prices for U.S. families. Many experts say tariffs risk breaking up global business networks. The administration believes only strong action will force change from trading partners. This confrontational approach is a sharp break from past U.S. trade policy. The White House is betting that short-term pain will lead to long-term gain. But there's widespread concern about the economic damage along the way. The debate is fierce. Will tariffs really help American workers or just spark costly disputes? The answer remains uncertain as the deadline approaches. The new tariffs have sent shockwaves through the global economy, signaling a shift toward protectionism. For decades, countries worked together to lower trade barriers. Now, the U.S. is taking a go-it-alone approach, The risk of a full-blown trade war is real, with potential harm to economies worldwide. The Trump administration is also considering tariffs on 24 other countries, broadening the conflict. Business groups and economists warn of higher costs, supply chain disruptions, and rising prices for consumers. Allies feel blindsided, questioning America's commitment to cooperation. Some countries, like Mexico, are already seeking new trading partners to reduce reliance on the U.S. If this trend continues, the U.S. could find itself increasingly isolated. The global trading system, built on shared rules, is under threat. The administration's aggressive strategy challenges the idea that one country can unilaterally rewrite the rules. Other nations must now decide, accept U.S. demands, or push back and risk escalation. The choices made in the coming weeks will shape global trade for years. The world is at a crossroads: cooperation or confrontation. The outcome will define the next era of international commerce. Many Americans are anxious about the new tariffs and what they'll mean for daily life. U.S. companies rely on parts from Europe and Mexico, like car engines, so costs are set to rise. Higher prices on everything from cars to groceries could hit consumers hard. Business groups warn that retaliatory tariffs could hurt American exports, especially in farming and manufacturing. Some fear job losses and factory closures if trade partners strike back. The uncertainty is making businesses hesitant to invest or hire. Critics question whether protectionism will really help the economy or just create instability. Families worry about affording essentials as prices climb. The debate is heating up. Are the risks worth the potential rewards? The connection between global trade and local prices has never been clearer. Americans are watching closely, hoping for answers. The stakes are personal and national. The tariffs are just one part of a wave of bold moves by the Trump administration. Recent firings at the Justice Department have raised concerns about political interference. Cuts to renewable energy funding signal a shift back to traditional energy sources, drawing criticism from environmental groups. The administration's actions are seen as a push to reverse previous policies and disrupt the status quo. Even personal disputes, like threats against critics, have fueled a tense political climate. Together, these moves create a sense of upheaval and uncertainty in the U.S. and abroad. The administration's strategy is clear: challenge old systems and force change, no matter the controversy. Supporters see this as necessary disruption. Critics call it reckless. The country is deeply divided over whether these changes will help or harm America's future. The world is watching how these bold policies play out. The long-term impact remains to be seen. Mexico faces enormous pressure as its economy depends heavily on U.S. trade. A 30% tariff could devastate Mexican businesses and cost thousands of jobs. President Claudia Sheinbaum is caught between defending her country and seeking compromise. The Trump administration's demands go beyond trade, tying tariffs to drug and migration issues. Mexico is scrambling to show progress on security, hoping to avoid the tariffs. The government is considering stronger border enforcement and anti-drug measures, but leaders feel the U.S. is using unfair tactics, threatening Mexico's independence. The outcome of talks will shape the future of U.S.-Mexico relations. Millions of lives hang in the balance as both sides search for a solution. The stakes for Mexico and the region are enormous. While tariffs dominate headlines, crises elsewhere demand attention. In Gaza, a worsening humanitarian disaster is unfolding, with civilians killed while seeking aid. The war in Ukraine has intensified, with Russia escalating attacks on cities. The international community is alarmed, calling for more aid and support. In the U.S., public broadcasting faces funding cuts, threatening educational programming. A new report on an Air India crash highlights ongoing global tragedies. These events remind us that the world's challenges are deeply interconnected. Trade disputes are just one piece of a complex global puzzle. Leaders must juggle multiple crises at once. The coming weeks are crucial for the U.S., EU, and Mexico. If a deal is reached before August, a trade war could be avoided and markets calmed. Failure means likely retaliation, higher prices, and job losses across all three economies. For Mexico, the stakes are especially high, with millions at risk. The EU faces economic and political strain if conflict escalates. The US could see some industries protected, but others harmed, and key alliances weakened. This is about more than trade. It's about how nations solve disputes and shape the future. The world is watching, hoping for wise choices and a stable, prosperous outcome. The decisions made now will echo for years to come.